What is up, everybody? Are you over? Are you over the Sixers loss yet? I'm not. I haven't found a way to move on yet. I don't know if you have. I just keep asking myself one simple question. Has Doc Rivers actually been fired yet? He hasn't. I don't know if he ever will. I don't know. I don't know what to think. We got a jam-packed extended edition because you requested it of Trending in the AM today. We're live at 8:10 instead of 8:30. Give us an extra 20 minutes to talk this out. At 8:30, we got a Flyers guest joining us to talk Flyers. And we're just going to talk a lot of Sixers again today. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Fourth and goal.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow. Notifications turned on. Do it all. Tell a friend. Share it to the world. Scream from your rooftop. The number one morning show is right here on Philadelphia Sports Network, and it's called Trending in the AM, where your opinions actually matter. Drop your comments on this Sixers team. And why Doc hasn't been fired yet. In the comment section, we'll get to them. That's how we do this. We do this with your comments. You know, we're also going to talk a little bit of Flyers. Nate Tennesen, lead Flyers writer for Philadelphia Sports Network, will be joining us in about 20 minutes. We're gonna spend some time. We're gonna mix it up a little bit today because we do talk all trending topics on this show, and the Flyers have made some bold changes. Hey, maybe the Flyers have a better outlook right now than the Philadelphia 76ers do. It's time for Daryl Morey to wake up and realize no waiting around here. What is up, Zeke? And how you doing this morning? And Eric checking in with the $1 million question about the Flyers is more about Danny Briere. I mean, I'm looking at how he spelled it. I think I spelled Danny Briere's name right in the comments section of the show. We got lots to talk about today. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel, here at Philadelphia Sports Network, Training the AM. Yesterday, we spent the entire show bitching and moaning about the Flyers' disappointment, or the Sixers' disappointment again. And I really thought yesterday's show would have been very therapeutic. And we had a lot of people tune in, a lot of comments rolling in for an hour plus yesterday about the Sixers. And I really thought just sitting here with you guys and venting, bitching and moaning and complaining would have helped me turn a corner, because the goal is to turn the corner and try to figure out what's next with the Sixers team. And it didn't help. I feel no more disappointed, no more heartbreak, no more frustration today than I did yesterday. Like it's still like this malaise, because we know this was going to be the end result before it happened. And we still put our emotions on the line for this Sixers squad. And we're going to be talking Flyers for a little bit today. And whether you like the moves they made with Keith Jones as the new president of the team or Danny Briere as the GM, at least they're making bold changes. They're trying something. What they've been doing isn't working. Let's try something else. The fact that the Sixers just keep trotting the same system out there year in and year out, it's becoming so frustrating. The players need to take some of the blame, as they were shit, but it also has to fall back on the head coach. That would happen in any sport. Doc needs to go. Start the rebuild. The process is dead. There's a lot to dive into in just one comment there, Zeke. Is it Zeke or Zach or Zach? I don't know. I'm thinking it's like Zeke McPherson, the Sixers or the Eagles cornerback. The players definitely need to take some blame, and they need to be held accountable, because you don't win an MVP and come up that small in Game 7. You know, James Harden, I see people supporting James Harden because he had 2 40-point games, but he also was a ghost for 3 games. You know, Tobias Harris, ghost for games. PJ Tucker, ghost for a while. You know, there's a lot there, but it does fall on the head coach. You know, that you see in the NBA with how Budenholzer, Nurse, Monty Williams, all fired, and all better coaches than Doc Rivers. If you do not succeed in the NBA, you're going to get fired as a coach. And And it definitely needs, I mean, I don't know about the rebuild, and the process is dead. Let's just say that. But the rebuild doesn't necessarily have to happen. I mean, there's a lot of options, and all options should be on the table. If I'm realistically speaking, the best course of action as a franchise is probably to run it back with a different head coach, with a different voice leading the charge for the players. Maybe that extends the process or rejuvenates the process a little bit, but every option has to be on the table without a shadow of a doubt. It is the exact same name, but oddly, we both prefer it to be pronounced as Zach. Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. I don't get, I get confused by the Zeke, the Zach, the CH, the CK. I don't know. I mean, with a CH, it looks like Zach. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I pronounce names wrong all the time, and supporters of the show no different. But yesterday, it got me thinking. And Ramona Shelburne, who is with ESPN, and she's really tapped in to the Sixers organization. She's got a leak inside that organization somewhere. She gets a lot of information from them. She said, she put out a post and a video, or maybe she was on the NBA Live show saying it. I forget where she said it exactly, but she said it, that the Doc Rivers James Harden relationship is going to end. That James Harden will make his decision about whether he wants to return to Philly or not based off of Doc Rivers and whether he's brought back or not. And it got me thinking, if you had to choose one, Doc Rivers or James Harden, who are you choosing? And Adam, yeah, fire Doc. Are you choosing Doc Rivers or James Harden over Doc Rivers? Quite frankly, if there wasn't so many issues with the salary cap and this team's overall roster construction, I'd be okay moving on from Doc and James Harden right now. James Harden, I said it yesterday, he has hit his ceiling. I mean, he's already on the downward trajectory. You're choosing James Harden 100%, or you're choosing to get rid of Harden 100%. Harden, we've already seen the best of Harden. Harden had his flaws this year, and his flaws are only going to be amplified next year. He's going to be 34, pushing 35. He was pushing 34 this year. He'll be pushing 35 next year. But can you win with James Harden, 35 years old, with a new coach, with a new system, somebody that's going to get in Joel Embiid's ear and tell him to be down along the block a little bit more, play a more traditional big man style game? Can you win with that? And that I think is really the crux of the first question that has to be decided. Do you want to run this back with another voice? And I put out the frustration tweet on Sunday night after the game. You either got to blow it up, you got to fire Doc Rivers and run it back, you got to trade Joel, you got to trade Tyrese, you got whatever. I put out all those options. But if I try to take my frustrations out of it, and I don't know if you guys agree, the best option is to run it back probably with a different head coach. And it's unfortunate Doc Rivers had his best year as a head coach this year. But if you think about it, the options of rebuild, like if you go out and get rid of James Harden, you can't just replace him. You trade Tobias, maybe you trade Joel or Tyrese, whatever. If you start the rebuild, it is so far from the rebuild because you have so many contracts that you've got to move, and people aren't just going to take our contracts, just to take them. The rebuild won't even start for 2 or 3 years. That's the problem right now with the team. You're so stuck right now as the Sixers that your almost best option is to just run it back. And Eric chiming in, I mean, go get Monty Williams. I don't know. I mean, I love Monty Williams, don't get me wrong. Josh Harris likes one thing, Eric, and that's money. He's a hungry guy. He loves to make money and buy more sports teams. He's paying Doc Rivers for 2 more years, probably somewhere in that $7-8 million range. It'll be cheaper for him to just promote Sam Cassell from within than to go out and hire one of the biggest names. And honestly, no, I don't know if anybody agrees with me on this. I would rank the 3 bigs that are out there in Monty Williams, Nurse, and Budenholzer. I would put Monty Williams as the top candidate for any team that needs a head coach right now. Over Budenholzer and over Nick Nurse. I love Monty Williams. I didn't want him to leave. I see if we don't give Sam Cassell the chance, someone else will. And we might be talking about this in 2 or 3 years again there. Zeke, if it's Harden and Doc, I choose Harden, but would not be against getting rid of him either if we could be replaced with a younger stud. You're not going to get a stud for James Harden. People know we got it. I mean, technically speaking, if he goes to Houston, we don't even hold any chips in a trade because they have the cap space to just sign him outright. Unless it's because he can get a few $1 million more in a side and trade. Otherwise, we hold no cards in that situation there. Blow it up, Adam says. Just keep Joel and Max. Well, see, the thing is, you can't blow it up, Adam, unless you're trading one of Joel or Maxey, because they're the only two players that are actually going to bring back draft capital or young players to build around. You can get draft picks for Maxey. You might be able to get some draft picks and a young player for Joel Embiid. You're not getting rebuildable pieces for Tobias Harris or who else is actually on our roster next year. I don't know. Paul Reed's a restricted free agent. Maybe you work a sign and trade to somebody. That you're not getting anything for these guys. Joel and Tyrese are the only real valuable rebuilding pieces we have. And I don't want to get rid of them. But if you want to rebuild, if your answer is rebuild, Adam, you got to know that one of those two has to go. It's unfortunate. And that's why just running it back with a new coach is where I'm stuck at right now. Doc did lose the locker room, but the better question is who in that locker room will listen to the next coach? I think that's a fair question. The new coach has to come in, whoever it may be, and make a point that the losing mentality. Doc Rivers said it was okay to lose in the beginning of the season when he said it was a scheduled loss. I think he lost the team at that moment. Anybody that really wants to win would not have accepted that. So it starts on day one, not accepting losing. And when you do have a scheduled loss type performance, the players are held accountable. However you do it. And you got to worry about stars being held accountable, but it is. We are in purgatory right now. That's why, Martian, I compared this to the Andre Iguodala-led pre-process Sixers. We're always just, maybe we make the playoffs, maybe we don't. Maybe we make it to the second round, maybe we don't. But we'll be better next year. It's no different. We're in purgatory right now. Absolutely. And yeah, I love Sam Cassell. We actually, Eric, we all think we love Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell is this enigma to me. Like, I don't know if he's good or not. But I'm willing to take the chance to find out so that somebody else doesn't take that chance. The same thing happened with Monty Williams. Well, we didn't take the chance, so Phoenix did, and they had I still cannot get over something else big is happening in Phoenix that we don't know about yet, because there's no reason for the Suns to get rid of Monty Williams. But the same thing is happening right here in Philly with him. Monty is not fixing this team's effort problems. Well, somebody has to do it. And I don't know if it's Monty Williams. I don't know if it's Budenholzer or Nurse or Sam Cassell. But whoever it is, day one has to come out and set that tone early. Literally, from the first second that they are in charge. Set the tone early that this is not a losing thing. And, we'll be joined here in a few minutes by Nate Tennesen. He's a Flyers reporter for Philadelphia Sports Network. He writes lead Flyers reporter for them. At least the Flyers did something bold. Like, if I'm Josh Harris or Michael Rubin or whoever's in charge of making the final decision, I'm firing Daryl Morey and I'm firing Doc Rivers. And I'm bringing in two new pieces to lead this organization. If you want to say out brand two, sure, whatever. But I am I'm doing something bold. Because if you don't do something bold and you just run it back with a new voice, maybe the new voice does something. But, this question here, Monty's not fixing the effort problem. We might have an effort problem with a lot of these players. Maybe Joel just doesn't have that extra gear. Maybe Joel needs a bigger player on the team than him. Maybe, James Harden. I mean, James Harden's 34, going to be 34. I mean, I don't know. I want bold. I think bold would be at least energizing to the fan base. You think about it, the Flyers are a dreadful organization, but at least with their bold Keith Jones move and Danny Briere as the official GM, people are talking Flyers. Maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel. Right now with this Sixers team, there is no light at the end of the tunnel, just more disappointment. Tobias can maybe bring us back Maxi Kleber and Reggie Bullock from the Mavs. And does that make us a better team instantly? I mean, maybe. And why would the Mavs want Tobias Harris? They already have a slow star, there. They're going to lose possibly Kyrie Irving. Tobias and what's his name, Luka? Is that really what Dallas wants to build their franchise around? I don't know. Maybe that works. Maybe not. I don't know how the contracts works there, but it doesn't change. We're not going to win the NBA Finals because we brought in Maxey and Bullock. I don't think so. Nurse and Monty both lost their locker room in a bad way, and Nurse flat out quit on the Raptors. Maybe that's a thing. I don't follow them close enough to know what's really going on the inner workings on what happened there. I was surprised on Monty. Nurse, the Raptors since Kawhi left have kind of been similar to the Sixers, where they're not developing enough. They've got a lot of young, talented wings that are just not taking that next step. Fixing effort problems got to come from the players. Yeah. Joel has to be a better leader, and by actions and results. Nothing he says now is going to change the conversation about it. He's got to change it. He's got to change it by action, by wanting it, by proving on the court that he wants it. Good morning, Eric. We got started early. You guys requested early. We got started early today. Lots on the agenda today. Watching the Celtics play, it was so clear that not only did they want it more, they were shooting threes with so much more ease every time they went to shoot. I knew it was ending. It sucked. Yeah, it's an effort thing. It's a culture thing. It's not just an effort. Effort comes from culture. Doc Rivers has built a losing mentality and a losing culture and a losing's okay, locker room. That's where it all begins. You got to start at the foundation of the locker room, in the culture of this team. If you want to not let the process be dead, if you don't want to start a complete rebuild, you got to find a way to refresh the culture of this team. At least the Flyers are doing that. I mean, I don't know if the Flyer situation is going to work. No clue. But at least they're trying something different. The Sixers, if Daryl Morey keeps his job, is there anybody left from the 2018 Rockets that he could bring in here? Because he's going to try. I don't know. I thought of this as a joke in my mind the other day, and I'm going to put it out there as a joke. I don't think it'll happen, but as a joke. The question is, if it comes down to Doc Rivers and James Harden, and he chooses James Harden, gets rid of Doc Rivers, but then James Harden and Joel Embiid don't want to play together, is he going to choose James Harden over Joel Embiid? And that is completely asinine and insane to even think. But that is crazy. We're going to fire through a couple more comments here because my guest here is about to join us. Good morning, Mitch. How you doing? If it's the Mavs, Phil, they have signed and trade. Yeah, okay, we'll get back to the Mavs trade in a second. Expiring contracts. We only have one expiring contract that's tradable. The Sixers need a Nick Sirianni flower speech. They do. They need a Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman reboot and a Jalen Hurts. Joel changes the narrative about him by winning. We'll come back to all these in a few minutes because joining me on the I Have No Sponsor hotline here on Trending in the AM, my man, Nate Tennesen. He's lead Flyers writer for Philadelphia Sports Network. Good morning, Nate. How you doing?
Good, Phil. How are you? Thanks for having me on today.
Thanks for joining me. I wanted to talk some Flyers because, and I think it kind of relates to what's going on with the Sixers and their disappointment because I needed something else to talk about so I don't just drown in my sorrows of the Sixers overall. But so let's just dive right into the Flyers situation. I was kind of trying to relate it to the Sixers in the beginning of the show there, and they go out and they bring in Keith Jones as president. They give Danny Briere the official title of official GM. And when the news dropped of Keith Jones being the president, it kind of shocked the world. It kind of shocked Flyers Nation. It shocked Philadelphia sports, fans as a whole. When you heard that news and that name announced, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I think it's a pretty smart decision to bring on Keith Jones. I mean, he's played for the Flyers at the end of his career, played over 500 games in the NHL in general. He's been with the Flyers for a number of years now in the broadcast booth also on WIP. I think at first, a lot of fans think it's just like a classic Flyer hire. They bring in Keith Jones, who played for the team, and also Danny Briere is there too. But in the whole grand scheme of things, I think Danny and Keith Jones is the perfect combination to enter this new era of orange, which the Flyers are calling it, and starting a rebuild, which, I mean, is needed. And both Jones and Briere have hinted at that over these past few months that It's not going to be easy, and it's going to be a slow process that takes time. And instead of what we've seen in the past from the Flyers of trying to do a quick fix all the time just to compete for the cup every year, they now realize that they can't do that no more, and they have to do it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, when everybody, when I heard the news of Keith Jones, I didn't make an initial reaction or comment about it because I wanted to let it like simmer in my mind, marinate a little bit. And all I saw were people talking about, this guy made fart jokes on WIP and this and that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hold on, people. If you haven't ever watched, was he with NBC, the national? He was with a national telecast for hockey for a while. If you haven't listened to this guy talk hockey like on a national level, the guy is super, super smart. He does know more than just making silly jokes. People forget that when you're part of a major radio show like WIP, you kind of got to sell the ratings and sell the ads. And yeah, he fell into the Angelo, trap there for a while. But really deep down inside, he knows what he's talking about, and he knows hockey inside and out.
Yeah, he's been great on NBC in the past and now with TNT, which has been amazing for the league. But the best thing he has in him is he can talk to the fans too and get the fans on board with where the team's going. He's not just going to be another guy that's saying like, yeah, like we're going to do this and this and this, and hopefully you join us. I mean, he knows how to engage with the fan base, get the fans on board, and he has great connections around the entire league, which is what the Flyers needed for their new president to start this rebuild.
Do you think that, Danny Briere as the GM and Keith Jones, I mean, they're both part of this organization for a long time as players, as announcers and whatnot. Do you think that they, I'm sure you watched the press conference when they were speaking. Do you think they are on the same page and have the same vision on how to go about, whether it's a rebuild, a long-term, short-term, whatever it may be? Do you feel that they're going to be on the same page with what they're doing with this organization?
Yeah, I do. I know with Chuck Fletcher before he was fired in March, he was both the GM and the president of hockey ops. But now the titles will be separate. So Danny Briere is the full-time GM, and Keith Jones will be the president. They won't intermix with their decision making. I know Keith Jones and Dan Hilferty, who's the new chairman of Comcast Spectacor, on Friday, said that they both have full, complete confidence in Briere and his abilities to lead the Flyers through this new rebuild, which I mean the Flyers haven't really done in their history at all. But yeah, they both have the utmost confidence in Briere to lead this team through a rebuild. Keith Jones will be ahead of Briere, but just trying to lead him in the right direction when needed. He's not going to step on his toes and say, okay, I think we should do this. And that's like my say on it. Tortorella's in there too. He'll have a say on things.
I was just going to say, where does Tortorella fit on when you reset an organization at the top? Normally the coach, because the GM or the president want to pick their guy to lead the team on the ice or on the court or on the field in any sport, really. Tortorella's just done 1 year here. And if you take a step back, he wasn't as bad as the record or the team's results were.
Mm-hmm.
How does Tortorella fit in with Danny Briere and Keith Jones?
Yeah, so obviously Tortorella's going to have a big say on like players to bring in and the way to go with this rebuild. But I mean, the full show is on Danny Briere. I mean, everyone's got the confidence in him to lead this Flyers through rebuild. And like we saw at the end of this season, Tortorella did a very uncommon thing in the final few games. He left the bench and went up to the press box to sit with Briere to kind of talk shop with players and what's going to be going on for the next year or two. But like we saw in Tortorella's career before, in his first few years with the new team, the records haven't been amazing because he's trying to get his players to accept this new buy-in culture that he does specifically. And we saw that in Columbus. The first 2 years, they were pretty low in the league still, but the next 3 and 4, they were one of the best teams in the league, like we saw in 2019 when they swept the President's Trophy winner Tampa Bay Lightning, who at the time were the best team of all time. But could that happen with the Flyers? Maybe, maybe not. Just gonna see how the rebuild goes because it's like really unprecedented territory that the Flyers see themselves in now.
I mean, they're in a rebuild. They ended up with the 7th pick in the lottery. So
Yeah.
it's not, you're not getting the best player in the draft, obviously. But this kind of links to what we're talking about with the Sixers and what to do with the Sixers team and you trade assets if you want to rebuild. I do want to touch on one thing, and I've seen Flyers fans put it out there on Twitter and on social media. I'm not necessarily for it. You look like a child compared to my old body here.
Yeah.
Nick, sorry. But I've been watching Flyers hockey since the mid-'80s, and everybody always says, when are we finally going to get a goalie? We finally got one in Carter Hart. But if you want to truly rebuild a team, sometimes you got to trade your best pieces to recoup enough assets so you can properly rebuild a team. And I see a lot of fans out there wanting to trade Carter Hart right off the bat because he'll probably fetch you the most, in return. And, you need draft picks, you need young players, whatnot. I would never, great goalies, even really good goalies are really hard to find. And we already lost Bobrovsky once, and we've seen how his career went after losing him. I'm in the boat of not wanting to chase another goalie down the line and just keeping Carter Hart. Where would you be where would you be? But where would the front office you think be on the Carter Hart stance?
Yeah. So first, thanks for the nice compliment about my age. I'm just 23, but I know I look like I'm probably 16. But yeah, with Carter Hart and with the way the team's going now, he's coming into the last year of his contract. So it's going to be a big year for him, obviously, with the way the team's going to be going. It was been reported a few weeks ago from Jeff Merrick on Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada that he thinks maybe Carter Hart won't want to be a part of a rebuild and spend the prime of his career in a rebuild. When he's only 24 years old.
Exactly.
So he's entering the prime. He'll be there for a few more years, but it's a reasonable question to say, why should I spend my best career here when I'm easily a top 10 goalie in the NHL in a rebuild when I can go compete somewhere else? But like you mentioned, the Flyers have been always stuck on trying to find that true number one goalie on their team. Like they had Pelle Lindbergh, who was way before my time, and if what didn't happen to him in that accident, he could have been one of the greatest goalies probably the league has ever seen. You had Ron Hextall in the 90s and early 2000s, but since then, it's just been like flip-flopping between different goalies around the league, especially going out, signing a free agent, doesn't work out well, make a trade. But what the Flyers have with Hart right now is perfect, and they could recoup a lot of assets in a big trade for him. But the smart thing, in my opinion, is have him stick through the rebuild, and when they come out, he'll be maybe 28, 29, still in his prime, and the Flyers will be ready to compete
talking
again.
Rebuild, you're talking this rebuild of this Flyers team and this organization is going to take 4 or 5 years to do that. Are the Flyers organizationally willing to wait that long? Because the fans are clamoring right now. The Wells Fargo Center down South Philly, for the first time in a generation, is not selling out every single night. The fan base is crying for Flyers hockey to be back. People don't understand this because I don't talk Flyers hockey on the show very often. A couple times a year. But people don't realize this. Flyers, I've been to more Flyers games than Phillies games. The Flyers were always my bread and butter. But it's like they've lost such a disconnect from the fan base. And I know a rebuild can't be rushed. But is there anything that they got to try to make it a little quicker than 4 to 5 years? Is it even possible to make the rebuild a little quicker to try to re-engage that fan base that they're losing slowly right now? I said it earlier this year, last time we talked it, the Union are ready to surpass, the Flyers in Philadelphia almost, So, is there anything like that could happen?
I think it's certainly a possibility because you never know what's going to happen. Especially with you have John Tortorella now, and the players we saw at the end of this year have started to buy in to what he's trying to teach. But like we saw, a good example is with the New York Rangers. They won the draft lottery in 2020. They sent out a mass email to their fans saying that it's going to be a tough few years to enter this rebuild, and they signed Artemi Panarin, who's one of the best players in the league. They get Jacob Trouba. And then they have a good season this year, but then they get bounced in the first round by the New Jersey Devils, and everyone wants to start tearing things down again. But there isn't an exact number on how the Flyers want to do this rebuild. All that's known right now is that Danny Briere wants it done the right way, and that's not going to be the old-fashioned Flyers quick fix just so we compete every year. This is going to be a time about getting top picks in the draft, developing prospects, not making outrageous signings like we've seen in the past, linking players to 5 or year longer deals with a huge cap hit. This is gonna be about like with the Sixers trusting the process, which really hasn't been working at all.
And that's my fear because right now the Philadelphia sports fan base, and this is again talking Flyers with Nate Tennesen, lead Flyers writer from Philadelphia Sports Network. It's a great way to link the Flyers and the Sixers conversation because the Sixers fans suffered through the rebuild, the process, the tanking for picks, and it didn't work out. But the Sixers are basketball; it's a bigger sport than hockey. The Philadelphia fan base of sports, I mean, they still love their Flyers just as much. I don't know if the fan base of Philadelphia, like the casual Flyer fan that is a Philadelphia sports fan, can handle another team going through a rebuild, now seeing that the Sixers have just completely failed at their process. Do you know what I'm getting at there? And that's my fear for the Flyers.
I think it's obviously a very reasonable.
And as you're saying that, Marshawn chiming in with this same exact comment. This rebuild looking awfully familiar to what the Sixers just did.
Yeah, it's a really reasonable opinion to have on that. But I think if you really want to see the Flyers succeed like they have in the past, you'll stick around through a rebuild. We've seen it with other teams in the NHL, like the Colorado Avalanche were down in the bottom of the league for years, and then they come out with top picks. They had a few years where they were getting bounced early in the playoffs, but then last year they make a run and they win the Stanley Cup. Even though they got knocked out in the first round this year, but that was a process that was done the right way. They got their assets, they got their top picks and prospects, and they all clicked at the same time. I know Philadelphia fans in general just want constant, instant success every year, but I mean that's not really how sports work all the time. But to all like the Flyers fans out there, I know Flyers Twitter is a crazy place, especially during the off season, like with every fan base. But if you're angry about the Flyers now, it's reasonable, but you gotta stick around to see the success in the end.
So we got Sixers tank, Flyers didn't. They saw what stuck on their lineup and took the road least traveled to fix a bigger organizational culture issue. Do you agree with what Eric's saying there?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, the Sixers they were like one of the hottest teams in Philly when they won a total of 9 games years ago. And the league, I mean, the city loved them for it. But the Flyers, they're not a team who's going to tank, even though a lot of the fan base wanted them to tank for Connor Bedard. And the Flyers are picking 7th in the draft, but I mean, they had a 6.5% chance to win the lottery and get Bedard, but we all had image in our head of Bedard wearing a Flyers jersey next year. But I mean, it's just not meant to be, and that's totally fine. The Flyers are picking 7th again. They picked 5th last year, and this 2023 draft is one of the ones that you'll speak of for a very long time afterwards. Just after Bedard, there's full changers.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Obviously, we're in a rebuild. We didn't get the number 1 pick, so we're not getting that, game-changing type. I mean, he's legit like one of the top prospects to come out in a long time in the draft. But is it deep enough where at the 7th pick we could still find, if Briere, Keith Jones, and the organization do their research right, a game changer that is available at 7?
Yeah, there's plenty of game changers in this draft who will be available even after 5. The Flyers go in 7. There's plenty of players with the U.S. National Team Development Program. You have Ryan Leonard, Oliver Moore, Will Smith, which will be funny in itself. And Will Smith was drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers. But then you have guys in Canada like Zach Benson. You have defenseman David Reinbacher and more of those. Like I said before, the 2023 draft will be one of the ones where it's just not one major player coming out that's going to change a franchise. There will be players deep in the first round too who have that elite level talent.
I don't know much about the Flyers draft pick, thing. Like, do they have more? How many they have this year, and have they traded any future? I don't know where they're at with draft capital over the next couple of years. Just thinking in my mind that it's all normal, so to say, at this point. They haven't wasted any in past bad trades or anything. If that's the case, and we are in for a longer rebuild, at 7, would you want the Flyers just taking the best player, whoever they have listed as the best player? Because when you're rebuilding, it's not like you're just missing one piece and you just need a defenseman or you just need a goalie or a winger or whatever. you need everything when you're rebuilding. Do you want the Flyers just going out there and picking whoever the best player is left at 7? Or is there one single person that might be there from 6 to 10 to 11 that you want that person only, and that's the best course of action to go?
I think right now a lot of the top prospects in this draft are forwards, and they're high-end, elite, skilled forwards with high-end potential. I think when the Flyers go to make their selection at 7, or they could move up, there has been a report a few weeks ago that was saying that Danny Briere is interested in moving up in the draft and being aggressive. So they could see maybe a jump from 7 to 5 or 7 to 4 or 3, because they do have some assets that they might be trading. And I mean,
Eric is jumping on the draft pick information right there. 1 first,
yeah,
2 thirds, 2 fourths, a fifth, 2 six. That's a lot of draft picks right there. No second, but that's a lot of draft picks right there.
yeah, the second pick was traded for the Tony DeAngelo trade, which
That
has
really
kind
worked
of
really well, right?
it's it could at first he was brought in to, I mean, quarterback the power play, but I mean he's obviously had some differences with John Tortorella, but I mean he's still a good defenseman, but it just hasn't been clicking in Philly, which is unfortunate. But with the draft, I mean, the Flyers do need that game changer, and they know it too. So my opinion is go out for one of the forwards, whoever's there. But like
whoever you have
don't.
ranked the best one.
I know what me and some of the guys from Philly Sports Network, we like Will Smith from the U.S. National Team Development Program. He's a very skilled center and forward, and he's also going to Boston College next year, so he'll be playing with top prospect for the Flyers, Cutter Gauthier, which, I mean, he can build some instant connections there to hopefully play in the NHL one day.
So the Flyers, they're going to go through this rebuild. They're going to, I don't want to say strip it down and start all over again, but they're trying to rechange this. We already talked about Carter Hart, and it probably isn't the best idea to trade him or not. Are there any other current Flyers on this team that you think could be trade, targets for other teams and people you think that can bring a return, whether it's young players, more draft picks for this year, next year? Are there any rumors of any of these guys on this Flyers roster getting moved before the next season starts?
Yeah, there's a few actually. Before the trade deadline, there was rumors that the Columbus Blue Jackets were interested in forward Kevin Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
He has a few years left on his deal. He's in his early 30s, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be a part of this rebuild long term. And I think he's known that too, with the way his exit interviews went and the way that things have been out in the media for the past months to weeks now. He could bring in a decent return. I know he was keen on Johnny Gaudreau coming to Philly last offseason, which didn't happen. They played at Boston College together, and I know he wants to play with him one day. So, I mean, he's in Columbus now, Gaudreau.
Wenison?
Ivan Provorov has also been another name who's been popping up in the rumor mill this year. John Tortorella obviously loves him. He plays the most minutes on the team per night. But he could bring in a decent return. I mean, the Flyers picked him 7th overall in 2015. He's one of those players out there. I think an unpopular trade candidate is Travis Konechny. He just had one of his career best seasons. He could return a very, very decent haul and a high one too since the year he just had. But he is also one of those guys who just clicks with Tortorella. So that would
how old is he now?
He is 26.
I feel like he's been playing hockey in Philadelphia for like 30 years already. Like
it feels like that.
It feels like he got called up so long ago, because he did, and yet he's still like. I felt the same way with Sean Couturier, a while ago. Like the guy, like they get called up so early that it just feels like they've been here forever. But he's still only 26 years old. That blows my mind that he's still that young.
Yeah, he was taken in the same draft in 2015 with Provorov. That's one of those drafts, the Connor McDavid one, that has just seen so much talent flourish in the league since then. And that's what this draft can be this year too.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. All right, so finally, again, like I said, we got Nate Tennesen here, lead Flyers writer. We'll get back. I see some Sixers comments in there. We're going to get back to Sixers in a minute and anything else anybody wants to talk about. But to wrap it up, Nate, your time here on this show with the Flyers, how are you feeling as a Flyers fan, as a Flyers reporter? Are you feeling positive about the direction of this team moving forward, even though it's going to be a long-term fix here?
I am confident with the way this team's going. It's much needed. It probably could have been maybe better if it happened in the 2010 years after they made the Cup final in 2010. But I mean, it's going to be a process, but it's the right one that's made. And we have two guys in Briere, Jones, Twitterella, and now Dan Hilferty is very big on this rebuild too. Probably much more than Dave Scott was in the past. But like to all the fans, it's gonna probably suck for a few years. But I mean, that's how rebuilds go, and you gotta stick around. You can't.
The way I tell people, because everybody wants the Sixers to strip it down and rebuild, and Flyers fans don't want to see it because they don't want to do it. I try to tell people all the time, like rebuilds in most sports, in most teams, in most cities, don't happen as quickly as the Eagles rebuild happened. I mean, they literally went from 4-12 in 2020 to in the Super Bowl in 2 years. Like that doesn't happen in any sport ever, almost ever. And so when you're talking about a rebuild, it is not to use the term, not to use the pun, it is a process that takes time, and it's got to have a little patience with it.
Yeah, the Flyers have always not liked to use the word rebuild in the past, but I mean Dan Hilferty now and Briere have used it so much since the hirings happened, and it's the best. It's the way the franchise has to go now to see the most success in the future, and they have so many young players that have flourished and thrived this year under Tortorella, and so they have a good foundation already. But it's just about building off of that and just adding more, and then hopefully, if it's 3 to 4 years, 4 to 5 or more, the foundation is going to be set, and the success will come eventually. It's just a matter of time.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Nate. So Nate Tennesen, Philadelphia sports writer or Sports Network lead Flyers writer. You had an article come out just a couple days ago. Do you got anything else in the works right now that you're working on?
Yeah, I should have another one coming out today with a draft profile about Zach Benson, who plays for the Winnipeg Ice in the WHL. And throughout the summer, just everyone keep following Philly Sports Network for the Flyers team. We do a lot of draft profiles, free agency stuff, mock drafts leading up to next month's draft in Nashville. So yeah, Eric's
editing right now.
Editing one right now. He edits
minutes.
Yeah, Eric edits my stuff pretty hard. So he's not easy on me, but our content is always up to date. We always almost daily stuff going out. So it's a great team at Philly Sports Network. The results have obviously been there. So exciting summer.
I appreciate you jumping on for 20 minutes or so here to talk Flyers. That is the most Flyers coverage we've done on this show. Maybe 18 months. I don't know. So I appreciate your time. And we're going to make sure we do this again when maybe after the draft or as free agency is happening. We'll get another update on our Flyers here in the coming weeks and months with you, Nate. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Again, that was Nate Tennesen from the Philadelphia Sports Network Flyers writing team. Let's reset real quick here. This is Philadelphia Sports Network trending in the AM, the best sports morning show there is in the Philadelphia area. Make sure you like, you subscribe, you follow. There are only 10 likes on this video on YouTube right now. We got to like 24 likes yesterday. I want to keep pushing that number, so make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, turn notifications on. We're going to get back to Philadelphia Sixers talk, Johnny, in a second. I do want to touch on something football related towards the end of the show. We got about 35 minutes left today, but I do want to wrap up that Flyers coverage to kind of link it with this Sixers conversation a little bit more, so get back in with the conversation, everybody. The Sixers are like right now they're teetering. What to do with this team. Do you run it back? Do you just make a slight change of coach or get rid of one of your star players or whatnot? Or do you rebuild or do you make a bold move and take a huge risk? Trading Joel would be that risk. The Flyers have been on that, they've been bad. Let's not beat around the bush. I went to a preseason game like 2 years ago and there were like a couple hundred people in the field in the stands. Like the Flyers were always that team in this city where when they're great, the city backs them. But even when they're not great, the diehard Flyers fans never waver in support. And I got this guy that comes in my pizza shop, Mr. Campbell, and he's been a season ticket holder for the Flyers for 40 plus years, 50 years now. And they even gave up their season tickets because they just didn't see the direction of this team. And they made a bold move, bringing in Keith Jones. Everyone wants to joke about the fart jokes with Keith Jones. It's a bold move. It might completely backfire. It might be a complete and total disaster. But also, it might be a genius thing. And a bold move like that is how you shock a franchise. It could be bad, it could be good, but it could shock the franchise and turn things around. Danny Briere as the official GM, not the interim GM anymore. I linked Danny Briere to Sam Cassell. Danny Briere is going to be a GM somewhere. If the Flyers didn't make him the official full-time GM, another organization, whether this year or next year, was going to do it. He was one of the hot rising names in hockey managerial circles. Sam Cassell is going to get a head coaching job probably this year with all the different head coaching options that are out there, or openings that are out there now. He is going to get a shot to coach somewhere. It better be with the Sixers. I hope it's with the Sixers. But if not, he is going to walk and find another place. Same thing with Yeager, the defensive-minded coach on the bench for the Sixers. I mean, they've got some talented guys on the bench. Now, the other thought process is, do you want the Sixers to just, if they fire Doc, just fire everybody, just get rid of the entire coaching staff? Because by doing that, you're getting rid of all the negative, energy, all the negative thought processes that there. Did Sam Cassell, who had potential, maybe develop some bad habits under Doc Rivers, let him figure it out elsewhere? There is that thought process as well. So I don't know, but I give the Flyers organization credit for making the bold. And even if we talked there with Nate for a minute about whether they should trade Carter Hart, that kind of links to trading Joel Embiid or Tyrese Maxey, more Tyrese Maxey, the young stud. You're in a rebuild. You might want to consider trading your biggest asset to help that rebuild just fully happen. Don't use the word tanking or the process, because then you'll get bashed by people everywhere. But bold moves have to happen sometimes to enact change. And listening to Nate talk about the Flyers, it's got me even more motivated to try to find out what changes need to be made for this Sixers team. Because changes do need to be made. And a lot of them. And I keep going back to Ramona Shelbourne making the statement, that through her sources, that it's either Doc Rivers or James Harden. James Harden doesn't want to play with Doc Rivers now anymore. And that's it. He doesn't want to play for him anymore. And I kind of felt like the bold move was to move on from both of them. But then you think also you run it back because you don't have many options, whatever. You got to move on from Doc Rivers. And the fact that it's not happening, I'm going to refresh Twitter right now, just in case maybe something broke in the middle of the show. Nope. Election stuff. Someone giving somebody a side eye, a video of somebody in a raft. Bailey Falter, a lot of Bailey Falter talk on Twitter this morning. A lot of Aaron Judge maybe cheating last night a little bit. That's all over on Twitter right now. Nothing breaking news wise on our Sixers. And that's heartbreaking because I need changes on this Sixers team. James Harden has a choice on who he wants to play with and for who. Yes, James Harden does have a choice because he can opt out at any moment now. And James Harden, you might want to crush him, and I want to crush him. He came up big in 2 games, came up small in a lot of games in the playoffs and the whole season. But let's not forget, James Harden is one of the best players in NBA history. Hasn't won a title, but he is one of the best players in NBA history, Marshawn. And let me tell you something. A lot of teams. I mean, obviously, he'll go where he wants to go. If that's Houston, he'll go back to Houston. But a lot of teams would want James Harden on him because he sells tickets, he sells jerseys, and that's something that people don't think about a lot of. I was talking to my man Sam Wagman. He's a fantasy sports contributor out there for a bunch of different sites. I hit him on my golf show last night, Fairway to Heaven. Before the show, we were bullshitting about the Sixers a little bit. And people that are saying trade Joel Embiid or don't trade Joel Embiid, don't think of the money aspect of it that the organization makes on these stars. They don't think about the money. And James Harden going anywhere would sell tickets, would sell jerseys, would sell merchandise, would TV ratings and advertising dollars, the amount of money James Harden brings an organization pays for his salary in and of itself. What is my favorite sport? Just interested. Well, that's a tough question. I mean, football and baseball, neck and neck. Baseball was my dream. I wanted to be a baseball player when I was growing up. I stunk terribly at baseball. Couldn't hit a beach ball if it was thrown at me. But baseball was my favorite always. I talk more basketball and football because I understand the X's and O's of those sports a little bit more. But I love baseball. I've probably been to more hockey games than any other sport. I've been to more hockey games and football and basketball games combined, pro level. But I would say baseball and football, close 1A, 1B. If I just had to put on a sporting event, if there's just a regular season Eagles game, a regular season Phillies game, I'm probably watching the Eagles game because I'll have to talk about it on this show. But that Phillies game would be really hard to turn off because I love baseball. I'd rather go to a baseball game than a football game. I'd rather go to a baseball game than a basketball game. So it's really close. And I'm a big golf guy. I love golf as well. I love tennis. I played tennis for a little bit. I love tennis as well. So there's a lot of great sports out there. Soccer, football for you, European, foosball for your Europeans. I won't lie. I mean, I do have a slight better appreciation at this point for soccer / football than I did in the past. I did work on a cruise ship for a little while. And for 18 months, we got ESPN as the only sports channel on the cruise ship for the crew. And it wasn't ESPN. It was ESPN International. And being a sports fan and just loving to watch competition, all that was shown on ESPN International 20 hours a day was soccer matches, whether it's from Europe, South America, Champions League, MLS, whatever it was. There was soccer on ESPN International all the time. Soccer shows in the morning, soccer shows at night, recap shows, preview shows, soccer 23 out of 24 hours a day. So as a sports fan, I started watching soccer. And then once you start watching some high-level soccer, Champions League, whatever, Premier League, you start to get an understanding and appreciation of the sport. So I don't dislike it. I do bring on my man El Parcero occasionally to talk Philadelphia Union on this show. I do appreciate it. And then my buddy Manny has season tickets to the Union. He's brought me. He has, field seats right there on the field. Man, it's an experience, man. So I don't dislike soccer. I just don't understand it as well. Especially in person. It's a fantastic sport to see in person. And the way the fans get into it, man. If you haven't been to a Philadelphia Union game down there in Chester at Subaru Park, I think it's still Subaru Park. I mean, damn, what an experience that is, for sure. So I can definitely get behind a little soccer for a little bit. But Cam, I didn't answer your question, but I kind of answered it in a very roundabout way. I couldn't rank officially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 the sports, but it's baseball and football for me. This show centers around more football and basketball, just because that's the show's called Trending in the AM. We got to talk what's trending, and most part, football and basketball trend, and more people want to talk about them. But if Cam, you ever want to talk about any sport, put it in the comment section. Hell, Johnny Chats tell you he brings up the USFL and the Philadelphia Stars all the time. I watched 3 minutes of a Stars game just so I did some information for Johnny Chats, and I wasted 3 minutes of my life there because it was awful football, but I still watched it for him. So if you want to talk any sports ever on this show or any topics on this show, we've talked movies, we've talked TV shows on this channel, we've talked everything. So whatever you ever want to talk about, we got it. That's why the tagline of this show now, where your opinions matter. I truly firmly believe that. Let's make sure we're hitting the like button on YouTube. Let's make sure we're following, subscribing. But back to the Sixers conversation for a few more minutes. Bold moves. I'm still so torn on this. Bold moves where we need to completely change the course and trajectory of this franchise, whether it's Maxey or an Embiid trade, or running it back with a new coach. And short-term picture. I mean, if you run it back, if you bring James Harden, if you fire Doc Rivers, you bring James Harden back, whether you get him on a short, big I don't know if I would give him a max contract. I know he wants big money, but he's 34. He's got to understand he didn't play well this year, well enough to get a max deal. If you can convince him to take less than a max deal, maybe a 2-year or another 1-1. If you can convince James Harden to stay on another 1-1, pick up his option or just re-sign a 1-year deal with next year player option, where you can opt out, you run it back. Maybe you go back to one of the early comments. Was it with Dallas for Max Kluber, I think it was? Let me find it. Somebody suggested Tobias for two people, Max Kluber and Reggie Bullock. Marshawn suggested that. Maybe you make a move like that. You run it back. You tweak the bench. George Niang's a free agent. You let him walk. Maybe Springer takes a jump up. Maybe he does. And maybe that's a missing piece, and you get a new voice in the locker room. Maybe it does. What's the worst can happen if that's what you do? Then you just start the rebuild. Max, you'll only be 23. Embiid will be 30. You can still trade Joel Embiid. You can still trade Tyrese Maxey if you have to. James Harden still can walk at the end of the year, if you want to. Maybe the best course of Mac McClung. Dude, if we have to play Mac McClung's the type of player that gets minutes during the 10-72 Sixers team. Mac McClung, I love him. He's a great story, great dunker, energizing. He's capitalizing on his 5 minutes of fame. But those last 2 games of the year, man, when I saw him out there, man, in a real competitive basketball game, that guy will get roasted on the court. Roast it, man. When you got other teams top, no. I can talk WWE a little bit, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. I'm a huge Roman Reigns. I acknowledge Roman. I do. So I did not watch Raw last night, much of it because I had Fairway to Heaven on last night. I haven't even read the recap yet, but I acknowledge Roman Reigns for sure. Absolutely. I could talk AEW, TNA. I could talk Impact Wrestling. It's not TNA anymore. It's Impact Wrestling. I could talk it all with you. And no matter what it is. I got a wealth of knowledge in this head that's covered by way too much hair right now. I need a haircut really bad. But I really feel that philosophy of what's the worst that can happen if you run it back with a slight tweak, a new coach, and a few new role players on the bench. What is the worst that can happen? Another second-round exit? Another first-round exit? Well, we've already faced that before. Josh Harris's marketing team can sell it to the fans, and we'll all buy in again that we're running it back. We've got some new pieces. Tobias is gone. George Niang's gone. Springer's taking his step in development. We've been working on that. You've got Sam Cassell changing the culture. They could sell that to the fan base, and a majority of the fan base will buy into it. I won't. But I could see that it's probably the best course of action. Because, again, we're talking now about blowing it up. James Harden walks, trade Joel, trade Tyrese, trade Tobias, trade this guy, trade that guy, trade this guy, that guy, blow up the Wells Fargo, whatever it is. We're talking that. But if we just run it back with some slight tweaks, we can still have that same conversation next year. It's not like the blowing it up changes next year. It's not like Joel Embiid's about to be in his last year of his life, his career. I mean, it could be. You never know. He could always get hurt at any moment. But it's like, just make it. This conversation can happen next year. And for the franchise, that might be the best course of action. It won't make the fan base happy, but it's possible. Can Jerry West save this team, or is he exclusive to the California team? Yeah, I think he's exclusive to California team. I don't know what we need. I mean, I'm saying that running it back with slight tweaks is the best course of action. It's not what I want to do, though. It's not. I mean, I want Doc Rivers gone, Daryl Morey. If Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers aren't fired by today, then that means one simple thing to me. I mean, we're now 48 hours since the loss, the end of the season. If you're firing your coach, you do it pretty quickly normally. If Doc Rivers isn't fired today, that means Daryl Morey's not getting fired. If Doc Rivers isn't fired today, that means one thing, that they're trying to figure out the James Harden or Doc Rivers thing. And if James Harden goes, Doc Rivers comes back. I think running it back with a slight tweak at the coach is the best course of action. Running it back with James Harden or with Doc Rivers and no James Harden is the worst course of action. Because you're not getting much in return for James Harden, and it's going to be harder to replace James Harden's assists and points and stuff like that on any given night. It's going to be harder to do that. Doc was already here with Daryl. Absolutely. I agree with you on that. I think Daryl wanted to bring that. Oh no, that just brought up a bad thought process again. Daryl Morey's choice is Houston Rockets. So that means he's going to fire Doc, keep James Harden, and bring Mike D'Antoni. That thought process right there literally just made my heart sink into my stomach. And my stomach's pretty big. And it sunk to the very bottom of it. Broke my heart even thinking that was a remote possibility just now. Because I think Mike D'Antoni is one of the most overrated coaches in NBA history. Can't stand the guy. Terrible. Agreed. I don't know how, but you should also try to recoup draft picks. Yeah, I mean, you know how you do that? I mean, Cam, who do you have that you could get draft picks for? The only two players you could trade, 2.5. The only two players you could really trade to get draft picks, Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. You might be able to, if you get a sign and trade with James Harden, you might be able to get one draft pick. Maybe two, but not much. But let me tell you something. The only way you're going to get multiple draft picks for a player, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid. And you could do that next year, too. Or in the middle of the season. Like, see, that's the thing. That's why I'm saying the slight tweak with the coach and the bench. And then if it doesn't work out, then you blow it up next year. What harm is that? Like, unless you're going to make the big, bold moves of fire Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers and strip it down, build around Joel or build around Tyrese Maxey and start all over again. Unless you're going to do that, you just wait till next year and do it. Because they're the only guys. The only fear I do have, and I do have this fear, so I say that the Doc and Daryl haven't been fired yet because they're trying to figure out the Doc and Harden situation. Like, what does James Harden really want to do? And they can't make a coaching decision, so James Harden decision's made, whatever. I will say, there's a little voice right here, it's just super tiny, right in the back of my ear here, that is occasionally saying that Joel Embiid wants out. And that's why they're trying to figure out what to do right now. They haven't made any decisions because Joel Embiid, you saw his laughing and he didn't seem to care as much about losing on Sunday. Goofing around with Jason Tatum, smiling and grinning during the press conference, deflecting some of the blame. I know he took some of it, but deflecting some of it. Little voice right here in the back of my ear that's saying maybe he really does want out. And he's hoping that Miami loses to Boston. So Jimmy Butler says, go get me Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid says, send me to Miami right now so I can be with my buddy Jimmy Buckets. That is this big of a fear, but there is a fear of that's what's going to slow down the whole offseason right there is Joel Embiid. Mike D'Antoni would have broken the city. He was an assistant. Yeah, he was under Brett Brown, and everybody thought that he was going to be the one to take over for Brett Brown, and I was crying. I'm like, please, no. Like, I would literally take Brett Brown back in this city before I would take Mike D'Antoni. Yes, you heard that. Clip it out. I would take Brett Brown back as the coach in this team before I would take Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni is a terrible, terrible coach. You're at least guaranteed Bam in the deal. You might be able to get if that little voice is even remotely accurate, and Joel to Miami is really the offseason move. You might be able to not get much in the draft capital, but you might be able to get Bam and Tyler Hero. Maybe Duncan Robinson, so you get two scorers, you get a big man. You pair Tyler Hero and Tyrese Maxey in the backcourt. Duncan Robinson is your sniper off the bench instead of George Niang. Bam. Maybe you could convince James Harden to stay too. And I think James Harden and Bam in the pick and roll with the dunking would be magic. You might get James Harden averaging 13 assists, 14 assists a game next year in that scenario. With snipers out on the outside and Bam dunking, you might. I don't know. I don't want to think about that being a possibility. But maybe it is. Maybe that is what's going to hold us up. And every day and every minute and every hour that ticks by, Every one of those things that tick by just leads me to think that there's a lot of uncertainty with a lot of people in the Sixers organization. Doc Rivers, James Harden, Daryl Morey, Joel Embiid, all of them have questions to answer to figure it out. I mean, if they really try to force the hand, I mean, maybe you do. I mean, I said it yesterday, Marshawn. Don't forget. Rudy Gobert got traded for 5 first-round draft picks. If Rudy Gobert can go for 5 first-round picks, Joel Embiid could be traded, and you could get some damn good value from him. Don't forget, 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert. That was insane. I said it when it happened. It was insane, and it looks even more insane now to see how bad he played this year. Man, Embiid for Bam and Hero, you should get draft picks with that too. You would have to get some draft picks involved, especially with it being the reigning MVP. Absolutely. You probably get Bam, Hero, Robinson. I don't know about 5, like Marshawn says, Cam, but you probably get 2 or 3. Something like that. Maybe 3 draft picks. Bam, Hero, Robinson. You keep James Harden. You build around Harden. You build around Maxey and Hero. That would be your core foundation for the future. And you keep Harden around for that one, a core of Bam, Hero, Harden, and Maxey with whatever else on the bench. That's going to make the playoffs. It might not be a home court in the first round. It's a 5, 6, 7 seed at least. And it's proven in the playoffs this year that you can make a deep run as a 7 seed. So 8 seed, whatever. Hell, weren't the Lakers the 9 seed and they're in the freaking Western Conference Finals? So you could do it. I'm going to have to dig. There was a tweet. I can't remember who put it out there. I'm going to look around for it. Of all the different teams that would be interested in Joel Embiid, hypothetically speaking. And that would have an asset of a star, an all-star, not a superstar, an all-star level player that could come back. I'm going to try to find it and see it. This national account or big account listed like 7 teams. And some of them did intrigue me. He just won the MVP after 3 years of that type of production. I think, yeah, it might be. If Rudy Gobert gets 5 draft picks, it might be the biggest trade. I'm trying to think of what the biggest trade package ever was. But it would be damn well right up there at the top of the biggest trades of all time. And I'm not saying that I want it, that I think it'll happen. But what I'm saying is that could be one of the reasons why nothing happens now or for the next couple of days, next couple of weeks. When's this Boston-Miami series? Like some people are predicting Boston just sweep right through Miami. It's not going to happen. Jimmy Butler's way too good. I would even say that Miami has a chance of beating the Boston Celtics. And if Miami gets back to the finals, wins or loses, I don't know. Are you saying Jaylen Brown and stuff for Embiid? So you're saying trade Joel Embiid to the Boston Celtics? Or am I missing what other Jalen you're talking about there, Cam? I'm not sure. I don't know how you trade Jaylen Brown or trade Joel Embiid to the Celtics. I don't. You could have had Jaylen Brown for Ben Simmons. You didn't do that. Why you'd want to trade him to your biggest rival? He seems to be developing a relationship with Jason Tatum, not just because of him smiling with him off the court, but they seem to have a relationship. Maybe the two of them want to play together. Maybe we already know Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum don't seem to fit well together. I don't know. I would rather send him to Miami than Boston for sure. I think Miami is on the cusp of falling off. Jimmy Butler's getting up there in age. How much longer can he keep playing at this level and this intensity? But they have such a great coaching culture. Like you look at Miami and you look at Philadelphia, the culture of that team. Eric Spoelstra does not get enough credit. Eric Spoelstra may be the best coach in the NBA, arguably, if not 1, 2. Eric Spoelstra, in my opinion, is already, I know he's had a lot of stars on his teams, but Eric Spoelstra is already a top 20, top 15 coach of all time, in my opinion. The guy just knows how to get so much out of his team. And he's built such a culture down there in Miami. It's crazy. I was talking about Brown, Jaylen Brown, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe. We'll see. And but all it comes down to, Cam, is I really truly believe That's the thing that's holding it up. That Joel Embiid, not James Harden, is going to hold up this offseason. Joel Embiid, not Doc Rivers or Daryl Morey, is going to hold up this offseason. I know he's committed to Philly. And I know he loves Philly, Joel Embiid. But he wants that title. Every player wants that title at some point. In all sports, they want that title. And if he does not think he can win it here, he's going to be 30 next year. He wants that chance. His window's closing. We talk about it every year. The window gets smaller and smaller for Joel Embiid. Maybe this is the year he says, get me the blankety blank out of here. I know Maxi's limited size-wise, but he has to find a way to make an impact. Yeah. He's got to find a way to not lose confidence. To when he goes to the rim sometimes and he's got somebody like Jaylen Brown on him, or a tough defender like Marcus Smart, he's got to learn how to use his body more for more space and not draw. He falls to the ground so much, just like James Harden does. But he's got to use the body to create separation the best way possible. Find a way to do the never called against the Sixers push-off. You know what I mean? And create that separation. Again, make sure we're hitting that like button. Smash that like button for me, guys. We got 11 likes on this video only today. When I went extended for you guys today. I know the Flyers talk killed the momentum. I'm sorry. I won't bring Flyers back up again. But we got to keep telling people, Training the AM, the best morning show in Philadelphia where your opinions actually matter. Hit that. Let's see. And just like that, somebody hit the like button. I appreciate that. I don't know. I don't want to trade Tyrese Maxey. Just like I don't want to trade Carter Hart. But they are the guys that are going to return the biggest value possibly. I mean, Joel Embiid's going to bring back a big value. Absolutely. If Joel Embiid gets you 3 players and 3 draft picks, Tyrese Maxey still might get you 3 draft picks. But again, I really, truly believe, unless, Michael Rubin and Josh Harris decide to fire Daryl Morey, which I'm 100% okay with and almost wanting to happen. Okay? If they're not firing Daryl Morey, we are not going to see anything happen with this team until the NBA playoffs are done or the Miami Heat are out of the playoffs because Joel Embiid might be. It's almost like when you saw him grinning, in his press conference, like he knew something already. Like he knew he had already told, like it took him forever to come out. Maybe he went right to Daryl Morey after the game or right to Doc Rivers and said, yo, I'm out of here, man. I'm done. Maybe he already knows the answer to all this offseason. Let me tell you something. If he decides to go bye-bye, the uproar will be crazy. I also don't think, and again, like I said, I was talking with my man Swagman yesterday before Fairway to Heaven. And again, if you want the best PGA Championship breakdown for this week's second golf major, who's going to win, who to play in fantasy golf. If you're not playing fantasy golf on DraftKings or FanDuel or wherever, it's the greatest sport fantasy-wise, a 4-day sweat. Fantastic. Check out my episode last night, Fairway to Heaven. A lot of information about the PGA Championship. And Patrick Cantley is going to cost me a lot of money because I think he's going to win, and he never wins. Tony Finau's a good bet. Xander Schauffele's probably my pick to win. But check it out. The Miami trade for Joel is looking really good. In literally 20 minutes, I've just convinced the world that it's time to trade Joel Embiid to Miami. I mean, it would not shock me if it happened. It just wouldn't. But the thing is, it can't happen yet. But like I said, I was talking with Swagman, and we were talking about it. Do people realize that trading Joel has to be approved by so many people? Like ownership, Joel, the amount of money the Sixers organization would lose by trading Joel Embiid. Ticket sales, advertising dollars, TV right money, jersey sales, merchandising sales, bobblehead sales, whatever you want to say. You're not getting anybody back from Miami that's going to bring that kind of money back. Tyler Hero ain't going to sell. He's going to sell jerseys at first, but he's not going to sell seats. Bam Adebayo ain't going to put butts in the seats. Hero will shoot us out of games, but I'm here for the drip. Drip's a cool word for you young kids, I guess, right? That means your clothing. Do we need somebody just like James Harden with the drip out there again? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think. I mean, we'll keep talking Sixers tomorrow again. We will. We'll keep going through this, and maybe I'll find some of these other trade partners for the Sixers with possibilities. Trading the rate MVP would be and look, Zach. It's we'll just call you Tyler. It's like Marshawn. I don't know if to call him Marshawn or Lynch. I just call him either or. We'll call you Tyler now, and I just said Taylor instead. Sometimes a bold move has to be made to shock the system of a franchise. It would be bold. But don't forget one thing, Zach, that the NBA is not controlled by the owners. The NBA is not controlled by the coaches or GMs. The NBA is controlled by their star players. If Joel Embiid said, I want out, Sixers got no choice but to trade him. Right here. That's why, is there a trade for another player out there? We traded for him, and we won a title after we traded him. Is there a move that could be made? I don't know how. We don't have any assets. Maybe it's Tyrese Maxey. Is there a move for a super? And don't give me Dame Lillard, because I don't know. Dame Lillard's never played past the second round. Oh, this is a bold question right here. From an enjoyment standpoint, would you rather watch a team developing or vets trying to compete? I want wins. Dude, I had a hell of a lot of fun time, Cam, watching the process Sixers. I had a hell of a lot of fun watching, TJ McConnell and those guys, grow and build together. But man, I want a title. I want that euphoria when the last second or last out, when the Phillies win a World Series in 2008 or the Eagles win the Super Bowl. I want that euphoria. So I want them trying to compete. Eric, did you miss a few minutes ago? We don't want 5 first-round picks. That's what Rudy Gobert went for. We want Miami. We want Bam, Hero, Duncan, Struss, and 3 or 4 first-round picks. You get enough players to keep competing, and you get enough draft picks to start the rebuild, too. And maybe then you got draft picks that you could trade for our assets to add. I don't know. Look, these are all bold takes. I'm going to find the list I'm talking about of other potential players that Embiid could get traded for with draft picks and whatnot, teams that would consider it and that would have players to consider back. Aaron Rodgers on the Jets or a Baker Mayfield on the Bucks? Who would I rather play? Aaron Rodgers on the Jets or Baker Mayfield's Bucks? If I'm the Eagles are beating both those teams by 30. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, I already said, I forget. I made a bold prediction a couple weeks ago, that Aaron Rodgers and the Jets aren't going to win 6 games this year. The Bucks with Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask or whoever their starting quarterback's going to be ain't going to win 5 games this year. So the Eagles steamroll both those teams. So I want to play them both. Hell, I'll play the best players from both teams combined, and the Eagles will still steamroll them. Stars, huge win over the Generals. That football league is still playing? Come on now. Low effort. I put a low effort into watching the USFL. I gave them 3 minutes, Johnny. That was the biggest waste of 3 minutes of my life. Biggest waste. On football news, we're talking football. It was announced yesterday that one of the wild card weekend games is going to be streamed exclusively on Peacock. Now, if one of your home teams, your home market teams is in it, you'll be able to watch it on the local NBC affiliate. But let me tell you something. All these leagues getting in bed. You got baseball games on Apple TV. You got, I think baseball tried Facebook Live for a show. All these sites all these sports teams and all these leagues are trying to keep the fans engaged and more people watching and tuning in. Yet they're all turning to these streaming sites. And there's a lot of fans out there, 45, 50 and older, that don't get involved. I don't have a streaming service. I still have cable. It's ridiculous how much money. I mean, I think I read that Peacock paid $110 million to just get one wild card game. The casual fans that are over 50 will not tune in to that game. You're going to get less views, less people paying attention to a foot. You want more people watching? So let's put it on a streaming service that you got to pay for one game. Is anybody going to sign up? Everyone's just going to sign up for Peacock and then cancel their subscription after the free trial is over. It's ridiculous. Stars kicked like 6 field goals. The Sixers are low effort. Baker is terrible. Eagles walk to the Super Bowl. The Eagles are walking to the Super Bowl. Well, they're going to actually take a really nice private jet probably. Panthers roster. Dude, I was, if you're following me on Twitter, you know I was hyping up Bryce Young from his weekend, for sure. I have Verizon Fios, so I guess that's not cable technically. I can't get cable at my house because I live in the middle of a farmland, and Fios is my only option for internet. So yes, I have a Fios package. You want me to do an afternoon? I gotta work, dude. I got 3 catering orders. My wife went in at like 8 a.m. this morning to get started, so I could do this show. So I hear my dogs barking in the background. I wish I could do an afternoon show too, but man, I'm going an hour and 20 minutes today. You want another 2 hours of my life, Marshawn? I better find a way to make some money on this show. 13-4. I don't make record predictions till the week before the season starts, but it's pretty close to 13-4 for sure. My parents won't know what a peacock is. Well, I know what a peacock is because the lady that I rent my house from has one on her farm, and it showed up on my deck. It hopped over my deck. It was right outside my door when I opened it like a couple months ago. It was insane. Cowboys are terrible, obviously. I work from home, so I can only be tuned in. Well, I appreciate that. I wish I could make this a living, my man, and do this all the time. But for now, the pizza shop needs made. Pizza shop needs food. So we're going to wrap this up. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Maybe I'll go a little early, maybe not. We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling tonight. We'll see what kind of news breaks and all. But obviously, more Sixers talk. Maybe we'll get back in some Eagles. We'll definitely get into the Phillies tomorrow a little bit as well, since the Phillies are still a train wreck, in my opinion. I got a lot of feelings to get off my chest about the Phillies and how yesterday's game went, even though I didn't watch it. So we got lots to dive into there as well. More coming. Pound that like button, like Marshawn says, please. We got 13 likes. Yesterday we were in the like mid-20s yesterday. We got 13 likes today. What the hell is wrong with y'all? Cam, I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I apologize for bringing Flyers talk into the conversation, but we got to talk it. It is a hot topic in Philly right now. But we will get back to the Phillies tomorrow. The Sixers some more, Eagles, whatever is trending in the AM. For Philadelphia Sports Network, I am Phil Stiefel. Make sure you tell a friend. Tell the world that Trending in the AM is the only sports show in Philadelphia where your opinions actually matter. And it's the best damn show there is. And it's the first. We are the first daily morning show ever to exist in Philadelphia on YouTube. So you all have a great day. For Philadelphia Sports Network, I'm Phil Stiefel. We'll see you tomorrow morning.